Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. This is Phil Stevens. You're on Iron Radio. I am a strength coach, powerlifter, Highland Games athlete, and youth football coach. We're here again.
This is Coach Jarrell out of Strength Guild in Kansas City. I am a weightlifting, I've done some powerlifting, some strongman, and CrossFit coaching actually. Recent days.
Oh, CrossFit. All right, and this is Lonnie Lowry. I have been a professor for 20 years. I consult for the food industry and academia and stuff like that. Former competitive bodybuilder. Oh, and relevant to today, I have a real interest in space health. On the other podcasts that I do, I drove down to Houston for this space health thing. I got really more and more interested in it because I think it's the future, like exercise science and nutrition, because if we want to get off this rock, we're putting ourselves in this extreme environment. Anyway, I stumbled on a paper, I'll just get right into this, that really kind of begs the question, like, are we screwing ourselves, even down here on Earth, from a biopsychosocial perspective? So just to set this up, before we hit the record button, everybody, we are talking about how, like, my wife is a counselor, and when she counsels people, sometimes I've said, you're trying to give them tools and coping skills, but are you trying to plant flowers in bad soil? In other words, there's a biological aspect to all this. And if you don't eat right, you have mental problems. Could they be less coachable? Could they be less energetic? Whatever it might be. So this is a paper. It just came out by Pather and colleagues. It's Frontiers in Neural Circuits. So this is a little bit esoteric, but we're going to borrow from this, so bear with me. Nutritional Psychiatry in Promoting Resilience. I think this is very interesting. Now, this is about deep space missions and astronauts and stuff because, of course, they're under all kinds of stress. And obviously, there's no fresh food up there. So they got to take it all with them. But as I'm looking at this list of things that you need, food components that are critical for overall nutrition and brain health. Let me just read you a couple things. Nutrition is one of the top 3 lifestyle factors that influence disease initiation and the propagation of humans on Earth. So obviously, it's a big deal. No food, bad things happen or you don't spread around the Earth. An adult's brain consumes significantly more energy from glucose, that is 20%, than expected for its size, which is just 2%. So brain greedy for blood sugar. Mm-hmm. It says for neural functioning, and unlike muscles that use glycogen, the brain does not have stored energy reserves and is always metabolically on. Hence, a balance of essential brain nutrients is important, including, and now think about how many of these things on this list these kids are not getting, or even adult clients that you might have. Long-chain omega-3 fats. So omega-3 fats, antioxidant vitamins, vitamin D, B vitamins, including B12, and then minerals like iron, magnesium, and zinc. So, I'm looking at this list and I'm thinking, if these things affect brain function, are the people that we're trying to coach or counsel or teach, are they just trying to climb uphill in this, ridiculous environment? Like, for example, it says, diet quality is now understood to be a modifiable, independent risk factor for depression, even more severe depression. And, there's all kinds of mechanisms behind this. Your gut microbiota, brain plasticity, neurotransmitters, human stress response. There's so many things that are involved. And I just feel like, these are things that we're not getting. It says intervention studies in humans have shown a rapid impact on cognitive function in young, healthy adults that are on Western diets when they're actually taken off of some of the fat and added sugar and given things like fruits and vegetables, frankly. It's the kind of stuff Americans just mostly don't do. Particularly, they're talking about plant fibers and polyphenols being good things, right? So plant fibers are often like prebiotic, especially, here's a gold nugget if any listeners care, like inulin is one of the things I look for. It's a short-chain FOS, fructooligosaccharides. So when you see stuff with added inulin, that's a prebiotic fiber. It feeds the good guys in your gut. Getting them off of stuff like artificial sweeteners and emulsifiers. Anyway, so a lot of this highly processed foods is what they're saying. And, there's a move toward probiotics, prebiotics, and then those vitamins and minerals I talked about, and omega-3s. So my question to you guys is, do you think this impacts your clients? Like, this isn't just something astronauts experience when they're out in the middle of nowhere in deep space. Americans are kind of screwed. I don't know, Phil, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I think they're all eating the fact is I think we could learn by what people are eating in space because everybody's become lazy and they want it right now. Mm-hmm. So the trick is being able to eat, like you said, non-pre-processed foods or non-processed foods. The problem is in space, that's 100% required because we can't bring like a fruit tree up there. So it's finding out a way to process foods that are still good. It's like, I don't know, that AG1 and stuff is all over the place now, all over the news, with the greens fibers and things like that has, which is a potential. But, I think it's no question that today's youth are just eating majority trash. I mean, and it definitely doesn't help their existence. And part of that, is also today's society. Like, I was in the last group of kids where usually there was somebody at home. You were a one-income family, and there was somebody at home cooking good food and things like that. And that ended when I was in like fourth grade, or even planting gardens and stuff. How many people actually plant their own food and get just worry about good food and things like that? So
yeah, I'm just thinking, looking at this list, where on earth are even adult clients? Adult clients can go supplement these things, right? But like you said, the kids are sort of a captive audience if the stay-at-home parent isn't there to provide it. Where are they going to get omega-3s?
They're not.
They're not. Yeah. Or if they live in the north, their skin won't make it. Or vitamin D, or antioxidants, magnesium, zinc. These are at-risk nutrients already. And if they're part of brain development, oh boy, that's not cool, especially when people are young and their brain is rapidly developing.
Well, yeah, and I mentioned this the other day. I don't know. I'm seeing something in kids because, and that was another thing I talked to one of the coaches about this. When I was a kid, I've got, there's 100 kids out there practicing with us on the weekends. I'm in charge of 16 of them on my second and third grade team. No shit, 8 of them come up and hand me an asthma inhaler before practice. And I was talking to one of the other coaches, I knew one kid when I was small. It was weird. And now it's half my fucking team has inhalers. But I also think, I'm not a doctor. I'm not claiming this to be 100% true, but I think a lot of it from what I've seen is the kids are so out of shape that they run a little bit and they get short of breath and they think they need an inhaler.
Interesting.
Yeah. Whereas if they actually just ran for a while and they'd get used to it, and I definitely have a couple kids that are using it as an excuse not to work hard. Because, I don't know, after a bit you can tell when somebody's faking, oh, coach,
Yeah.
And it's you're not freaking out. You don't want to run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's definitely a change in our environment, and it is. There's no denying it. Nutrition has gotten worse. Physical activity has gotten worse. With the advent of social media and everything, kids aren't moving. We've talked about this a ton of times.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this downplay in nutrition. We have a huge downplay in physical activity, and that bleeds into the school systems now, where there's less physical education, there's less recess time, there's less. I fear that we're becoming what was it, Wall-E, where the people just sat on their butts and ate goo,
yeah. And their bones.
We're headed towards there. It's really weird. So yeah,
well, to your point about the wheezing, and of the nutrients that I just listed, we're talking about this huge exposure to this pro-inflammatory diet. If mom's not home, I don't know, here's some money, get McDonald's on the way when you walk home or whatever. The kind of stuff that they're eating is so pro-inflammatory.
Walk home. You're already, nobody's walking home. You know how long those school pickup lines are around here? They're crazy. And they'll live across the street.
Yeah, when I drive, my daughter's school's 5 miles away from my house, so I don't make her walk. But I drive her to school, and we get behind the bus, and there are bus stops a block and a half from school. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Wow. Wow.
They are, I could throw a rock to the school. and they're picking them up by bus. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I think, like you said, it all, from an early age, it all boils down to nutrition too. It's like, what are we giving infants in such a critical time of just beginning growth? And we're seeing a push in vitamin D as a culture, but again, how much of that goes, like, I know a lot of people who supplement vitamin D, but I'm also smart enough to know that I'm around a select group of people that give a shit about their nutrition.
Right.
I don't think the average person still cares.
Well, to your point about the kids lacking aggression, and there's a link between vitamin D and testosterone production, for example. I'm not saying this is going to solve the problem, right, or any of that kind of stuff, but this article literally is called Nutritional Psychiatry in Promoting Resilience. And it sounds to me like your kids, they're not particularly resilient. They're presented with some stress or a challenge, and they immediately start, wheezing and complaining and backing off, and you're almost trying to undo a huge portion of what Western culture has plopped them into. And like I said, obviously I have a nutritional bias, but some of this has been, their microbiota, the fats that are embedded in their tissues and their brain function, and they're literally chemically programmed to be these inflamed, non-resilient, struggling little guys and gals, and like I said, or even adults. I'm just thinking, when we talk about youth, it's because you guys have a lot of youth, of course, you're coaching, and it's, again, because the brain development is so rapid. They grew up, at least your adult clients, they've had a couple of decades where things weren't quite as bad, or maybe they can make, like you said, they can choose some of these things themselves. They supplement fish oils, they supplement vitamin D. Yeah. But I'm thinking most kids aren't doing that. The kids that I worked with as a sports nutritionist it was a D1 school, 100% of their intake, McDonald's, 100%. Yeah. And now I could say, shame on you, or I could say, well, let's talk about it. Do you have transportation? No, man, no transportation. All right, where's the nearest grocery store? You got one around? No, man, no grocery store. Yeah. So since they were little, that's all they've known. Food is, the corner, McDonald's or Taco Bell or whatever. Yeah. And that's, we all hear about urban food deserts and all that kind of stuff. And I just think that, reading this article about how it promotes the proper nutrition, I mean, nuts, seeds, colorful vegetables, seafood. Are you kidding? Yeah. These kids aren't getting that stuff. So I actually organized bus trips to an adjacent town so they could go up there and, just get some basic stuff. Like, you want career longevity? Like, you got to sell this. It can't just be for general health, because these are college kids. Or here's a list. Here's some weight gain foods. Here's some weight loss foods, whatever it is, and try to buy some of these things and actually take them back to your dorm.
And
it was something.
On that topic, I mean, you're seeing a lot of athletes at the higher level. So you leave the college level. And I've seen numerous interviews with high-level pro athletes, and nutrition is one of the big things they bring up when they get to the pro level that they learn from other pros. They're like, for years I've been eating this, but I talked to whoever. I talked to Shannon Sharp, and I had to ask him how he lasted so long in the league, and a big part of it was he changed what he ate, and the longevity that added to their joint health and their everything else, and they're not getting it at all until potentially later, when they can. How part of it is, let's be honest, that they could afford it. You're talking about kids. That's all they could do is live off the value menu. They ate whatever the hell they wanted, and So,
and compare a McChicken. On one side, you got a McChicken. On the other side, you've got this stuff in this article about colorful vegetables and the Mediterranean diet, and there is a gulf between what they actually can do, even if they had the mental, the knowledge to go after this. How are they going to actually act on that, right? As far as acquiring some of these things, then you got to sell them on the idea that these things are going to lead to more resilience, physical and mental resilience, and that's going to drive their career in some way. It's like Maslow's hierarchy, where at the bottom you got to basically be a good animal, and if you're not meeting those biological needs, like the right nutrients and sleep and stuff like that, shelter, how can you reach higher toward actualization?
Well, and it might even go beyond that into a simple level of you're battling a palate that has been bombarded with bullshit for 20 years. And some of them won't even try like a tuna sandwich.
Yeah.
And they'll automatically think it's bad just because they were never exposed to such a small, limited scale of processed crap that
and it's delicious, right?
Yes.
And that's the problem. Nobody's saying that these foods weren't designed to be delicious and cheap so you can consume more. And then when you think about like acquired tastes, a lot of the stuff that we do, even coffee, as much as I love it now, that's an acquired taste. It's not when I was 15 years old, I'm like, oh yeah, give me more of that. That's amazing. Yeah. Not compared to a milkshake.
Nope. That's exactly correct.
One thing I would just add to it is, at least with kids, and then who then become adults who have no management skill, like self-management skills, kids are asked to do less and less, like less overall responsibility. Mm-hmm. So let alone cooking, like learning to cook or, putting something together themselves. And like a lot of the kids don't do a ton of chores either, like just simple stuff like that. Like, so there's not as much stress in their environment on the physical side, but also there's just less expected of them. I mean, from a school standpoint, in general, like school, things at home. And so like those are like the best things you can do for kids is, and the ones who do well in here have expectations at home, like who do the best, like, whether it's, chores or whatever, they have some sort of responsibility. They're like, I have like a little mini coach at home as far as like, parents and how they, are able to chat with their kids and stuff.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like the biggest thing that we face right now, well, it's numerous things, but one of the bigger things is just the lack of physical activity. And like my biggest hurdle right now is making these kids realize that you're not dying. Okay, we're going to go run 100 yards. And it's like, it's getting past that they've never done anything tough in their lives. Yes, the discomfort and explaining to them that like this next lap, it's just mental. Like we won't let you die.
Right, you're safe.
If you're at that point, you're safe. We're not going to let you die. You just need to keep going. And we're not like when we're running 100 yards, it's like we don't expect you to sprint. Just keep going and if you do that, and it's starting to click. You'll see it click in one kid. And but everybody clicks at a different area. And that's even like the deal we're battling with. Like we're in a society now where anything masculine has been turned bad. And I've got 16 kids that I need to tell, okay, we're on the football field, and we give the whole bully speech, like bullies aren't good and this and that. Mm-hmm. But out here we want you to be. It's okay. It's a contrived situation. It's a sport with specific rules. I need you to be hard. I need you to be tough. And again, it takes a different amount of time for each kid to learn that. Some of them may never get it. But like we've got one kid that he's turned into our best lineman, and he's just all go, man. And he has embraced it. And he's like water boy out there. Crashing into people. And it's great, but it's pointing to other kids that, okay, that's what we need. If we all did that and not being afraid to fail, like a lot of them are they've never tried. They've never been allowed to try, and they don't want to fail, so they don't try. And it's like, I don't care. Like if at this point in your development in sport, like we can't coach effort. That's all I'm looking for is effort. As long as you're trying hard, I know you're going to mess up, but just give me it. Just give me 100%. Because that's that first step. And they have never learned physically try hard. So,
well, like I said, biopsychosocial. I mean, what this article made me think about was with all the depression and anxiety and the huge links with nutrition. I mean, are you being presented a group of these unfortunate young people who they're going to have to fight harder to learn those lessons than maybe you did? If that makes any sense.
Oh, I think so.
Because you did have some vegetables. Maybe mom did make dinner at night or whatever it was, and that included the occasional vegetable, I'm not saying we all ate salmon every night, some kind of super strict, awesome Mediterranean thing. But yeah, I mean, think about like trying to turn on motivation, like you're talking about. When I mean, depression is largely, in my uneducated mind, as far as counseling, it's largely a lack of motivation. And so when they're talking about needing resilience and how nutrients are linked to antidepressive effects, right? I mean, they could be coming to you with chemically, like biochemically, less ability to turn that on because they just don't have the motivation and the resilience. And it's even what they ate. I mean, I'm not taking away from what Jarrell said too. There's no doubt, like responsibilities at home and all that. They just don't want to. Well, you do it for me.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I agree.
But it's weird that a lack of motivation could almost be linked back to certain nutrients and other environmental kind of
things. I 100% think so. And the more we learn, the more we know about that. And yeah, of course. I mean, the way that foods affect the whole system. And I don't think we could ignore either the medical world and the over prescription of kids like ADHD and things like that.
Yeah.
Zombifying these kids, like, because they have energy, especially little boys. And it's like, you need to settle down. And like, no, I need him. I need him to have energy.
Turn it on.
I need him to turn on. And that's hard to do when you've been chemically down ramped, and I have a little zombie. And,
it's a good point, Bill. My God, the pharma. It's not just, nutrients.
Yes.
It's pharma. It's all this biopsychosocial stuff creating these huge challenges.
It's everything. It's like anything they're getting now is down ramping all their systems, and like, don't run, walk, don't, settle down, don't be rambunctious. And like, you're seeing science more and more today that like boys, especially, and I'm not saying girls don't need this either, but little boys, like, they need to play daily to the point of exhaustion. Like, just go. They need an outlet. Even if it's 30 minutes, just go run. Just go. Get it out. And it's going to be healthy for them, and it's going to lead to better attention in school and everything. Like if I had to sit in a class and didn't get recess and didn't get PE, and like, I'd have acted up too. Like, you need that outlet, that physical outlet. I think that we're losing is a lot more important for all around health, brain and everything else than we've realized, and we've taken that away. And it's like they need that place to wrestle and just be tough with each other. And like I fought my closest friends as a kid. It's just what you did, and everybody got up and like they're my closest friends now. It's like you go through those things as boys, and we're different than little girls, and that's okay.
Phil, I've got a follow-up question for both of you guys. Do you think, because I mean, this environment we're talking about, this sort of weakening environment, if you will, it's been going on for decades. So do you see adult clients, adult men who have grown up in that way, that never got exposed to someone like yourself as a coach or a teacher or a key person, and they grew up in this environment, and then now as adults, they can't turn it on either?
Oh, yeah. I think we're starting to see that. We're seeing the first generations of that are now like adults in the working world that went through an environment like that. I don't know. It's good and bad. I mean, it's good for certain people. Like, I think if you can raise a kid now, the people that raise a child that's a little resilient and a little tough, like, are going to kick ass later in life. Like, they're not going to have much competition. Just the mental resilience to deal with tough things, and the physical resilience.
Just showing up, up, getting your ass kicked, showing up again. What I realize, like, I've seen a lot of this is, some with parents where it's like they think this process is supposed to be not only like kind of easy, and I don't want to say like painful, like it's going to be painful, but like completely pain-free. Like everything's just going to feel good all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also see it at jiu-jitsu with guys who start, and how many guys, like, when they first start, just, they like apologize about everything. They're like, oh man, sorry, oh, like they're very finicky like that.
Mm-hmm.
now over time they get a little bit better, but that culture, like the jiu-jitsu gym culture, kind of fosters, you know, failing and like laughing about it essentially, which I think a lot of guys who start because they listen to, like a Joe Rogan podcast or something, in their mind are like, okay, eventually they'll get there, but it takes a minute before that kind of dissolves, and then you actually try hard, and then you have fun. I mean, literally, we're there to learn to hurt people, essentially, right? Like, and it takes a minute for that little barrier to dissolve, and then they're like, oh, okay, and then you see them like relax, and a lot of the times people who are like, oh, jujitsu like opened my mind up to like, essentially a new way of living. That's like the main part. Is they learn to really try hard, and in some cases there's no other way out. Like when you're new, you're gonna get your ass kicked like every day, every single day. It's rough, and if you haven't done any physical activity, it's even worse. Like you're just getting destroyed every day. But if they stick around for whatever, a couple of years, you do see them change a little, like slowly over time, and then you want them to stay until like, at least purple, brown, black belt kind of thing.
Yeah.
But and I got to be resilient,
The hardest thing that I've had to deal with, I think, that I've seen change over the last 20 years is I don't care what sport you're doing. If it's lifting, football, racquetball, whatever, basketball, there's a point where you just have to, in every single sport at a higher level, you have to just turn it on. You have to turn on that aggressive nature if you're going to be good, and getting people to just turn on,
to try,
and to
really
just try. Well, and be mindless and try. Yes, like to be mindless and just go. Like quit thinking. Just like we've done the practice. We've practiced this thing 100 times. Now just do it. Do it mindless. Just turn it on and go hard. That's hard. It's real hard. Because they just haven't been exposed to it, whereas I think we were exposed to that at a much earlier age through just playing hard. And I understand the world has changed. Like when I was a kid, we weren't that worried about going and playing at the park. There wasn't people that generally were going to grab us and take us away, or just weird crap going on, shootings and like, so yeah, people are scared to have their kids go out and do things, and rightly so. But
I mean, think about like the physicality in the 70s. I would regularly get in wrestling matches and fist fights with my brother. Yes. We would tackle football, just backyard football. The principal would paddle us with a big ass, like 2-3 foot paddle. I mean, he'd bruise your ass, if you were really bad. I'm not saying, there's that old phrase, spare the stick, spoil the child. I'm not saying beat children.
No, exactly.
But it was a different environment in the 70s. Maybe, we were less refined, whatever it was. But it does take a little bit of resiliency to say, ow, okay, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again. Yeah. Or revise your strategy.
Yes, and, I'm at the point where a small tackle drill, you got kids that act like they just died because they've never faced anything that gave them a boo-boo, and like literally, like you said, we did that. Like every day, if you drove past the parks, and we talked about this on the show before, if you drove past the city park, it was full of kids doing something. It was constantly pickup football, basketball, baseball, climbing trees, whatever. And we fell down and we got up and we lived and we got harder and we realized it. And were there things that we shouldn't be doing? Yeah, like maybe the principal shouldn't have paddled us. But, man, there's also that, just the threat of that. Like, even the threat of it's gone. So, because, let's be honest, the threat of that happening stopped a lot of things from happening. And you didn't want to get paddled. So, and I don't want kids being beaten either, but I think it's like most things, the pendulum swings way too far in the other. It's one way, probably too far. So what happens? It goes to the polar opposite, probably too far. And I think that's where we're at. And I think the pendulum needs to swing back towards the middle a little bit. Like these kids need some kind of nutritional guidance. These kids need daily physical activity.
social structures that encourage effort.
And learn that it's like I've talked about, there's a reason why when I'm working with kids and have for the last, however long, my number one goal for them from day one is just to learn that physical activity is fun. Right now they think it sucks because it's hard because they've never done it. So it's exponentially harder than it was when I was 8, because I spent the first 8 years of my life running around. And now they get into it at 8, and I have to tell them to run 40 yards, and they literally think they're dying, because they've never done it. And it's like, okay, we have to realize that trying hard it's good for you, and it can be fun. And it takes a while for that to click.
Hey, everybody. Iron Radio is back, and in an expanded way. What can you expect? Well, first, you can get it simulcast every week on the nutritionradio.org network, as well as on the original podcast. It'll appear regularly on iTunes, Spotify, and all your favorite podcasting sites. We have a new Iron Radio /Nutrition Radio Facebook page as well. Please check us out. We're even backed up on YouTube. Second, please tell your friends who are longtime loyal listeners that they may see emails that share just the episode link and the show notes. This is a new thing, and we hope it will build community. Third, if you were a supporting member in the past, we may prompt you to resume through PayPal, but we will confirm each and every donor before reinstating that membership category. We'll never just restart your $4 auto payments without agreement from you. And of course, we will accept new members moving forward as well. Starting back slowly and honorably is the goal. And lastly, expect the sister show Nutrition Radio to expand into once weekly 45 to 60-minute episodes with guest co-hosts covering the same nerdy nutrition news that's been broadcast for a few months now in daily 10-minute clips. We hope that an expanded presence will get you the news, education, banter, and guests that's made Iron Radio's community so loyal from the start. You are appreciated.
It's like I talked about with people, like when you take an infant and give them their first shot, they're going to bawl because that is the worst thing to that point in time that's ever happened to them in life. These kids, I tell them to run 40 yards. A lot of them start crying because that is the single hardest thing they've done. They've done nothing hard. Yeah. So it's their scope. They're like, they haven't experienced it. And so, they think it's just death. Because it's the hardest thing they've done to this point in time, which is sad. Because like our practices aren't that hard comparatively to what it used to be. And I think like football has gone in a good direction. They've largely done away with two-a-days and stuff like that we learned like, okay, we probably took it too far. And if we back off a little bit, these kids will actually do better. Like Wendler talks about, they did away with two-a-days and things like that because you were actually beating these kids up and injuries was going up. Like, So there's a middle ground that needs to be reached, and definitely I think nutrition for a long time has been.
It sets the stage,
and it's been ignored. And hell, we've talked about it. I mean, how many GPs? How much education do they have in nutrition? Is there like one class, one entry level class?
Yeah.
So I guess Lonnie, I would ask you what it would be your lowest hanging fruit first action steps for either young people or adults even who want to craft a diet that improves their resiliency.
Well, I mean, looking at this list of nutrients, some of these things would be, I mean, I've long been a fan, and this is something Joey Antonio will talk about too. He's started the ISSN, is supplements can be a bridge over troubled water. So you can't expect their behaviors to change immediately, but sometimes dietary supplements can be that first step. So maybe they do get a fish oil or a vitamin D pill. I know a lot of people would be like, oh my God, that's the wrong move, Lonnie. Really? Because how many food sources are rich in omega-3s or vitamin D? There's not a big list here. I mean, if you think about it, even milk is fortified in vitamin D. Vitamin D is just not in many foods, So when you talk about low-hanging fruit, you can even go to the dollar store and probably buy like low-dose fish oil kinds of things for real cheap, or vitamin D. These might be some of the things you can start to do to get these well-known, insufficient things into their bodies, into their system. There's not much risk of contamination, at least from most reputable companies and that kind of stuff. But yeah, of course you could start to think about food too. Like maybe there's some interaction with a parent. Like once a week, can you pick a different vegetable and try it with the kid every week?
That's what I was going to say. That you talk about a lot.
Yeah, right. I used to talk about buying 1 pound bags of frozen vegetables. I would do this with the university kids. I'd be like, go pick, I don't care which one. There's lots of variety. There's mixed, there's peas and carrots. There's California blend. There's Asian type stir fry. Pick. And then make that bag disappear this week. You can do it. If you want to put some cheese on, whatever you need to do on it, make it happen. And your diet quality will be improved, right? Yeah. By the end of the week, you made that pound bag of frozen veg. And you can nuke it now, 5 minutes in the microwave and you got it ready to rock. So those are some of the things, but it's a good question, Jarrell. Like, where do you even start? I think it's individual in a lot of ways. But yeah, looking at this list of nutrients, it'd be really hard to set up a diet where they're getting, ample amounts of stuff like omega-3 fats and vitamin D. When their options are McDonald's and McDonald's, right? I mean, because they're in some kind of urban food desert or something.
It can't be that hard to do what you've talked about numerous times, though. Like once a week, just buy something new. But buy a new vegetable or buy a new fruit. And over time, like that variety has to help. If all you're eating is the same 4 foods all the time, like white bread, bologna, cheese, mayonnaise.
Right.
That's it. Oh, of course you're going to be deficient.
Yeah. Because you're going to stumble on something. Maybe it's if you don't like bananas, it's an apple with peanut butter.
And it's okay if you don't like it.
Right.
But you don't know unless you try. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's infinite options out there, and that might be one of the problems. Is that you almost need this narrow list. I actually created something called the Basic Foods List, and I gave it to a lot of the athletes because, like, you go to the grocery store if you can. These are the things I want you to think about, so see some performance category, a weight gain category, maybe a fat loss category. But what's the basic list? And I included some fast foods on there too, because there are some better choices. Now, sometimes money can be a barrier. Like you could say, go get a Chipotle burrito instead of go to Taco Bell. But, those are like $12 now or something. So, yeah, but I did have a basic foods list so they could, pick some stuff. Find something on this list that you like, but go try something new because right now you're stuck in a rut of, like you said, like 4 food ingredients, and none of them are really helping your athletic endeavors.
Yeah. I think physically a first step would be just like if it's a play date or whatever, like basically the problem I'm seeing is most kids are getting introduced to physical activity, usually by a parent or somebody, as a form of punishment. Like, you need to get in shape. We're going to start doing push-ups and sit-ups. Like, whereas when we were kids, like, our form of activity was playing. So by it being fun, we learned from an early age that physical activity is a fun thing. Like, set these kids up, like, get friends together, step the hell back, and let them just do something. Let them go to a park and play frickin' tag, whatever. And if they get a little rough, stay the hell out of it. They will work this out. If they're getting a little rough with each other, the other kid's going to say, hey, man, that was a little too much. Stop. Now, if it gets crazy, step in. But most of the time, step the fuck back, let them play. Let them be rough with each other. They're not going to kill each other. As long as you don't have some psycho kid pushing them off the top of the monkey bars, doing something stupid that's really going to hurt them. Yeah. Like, there's times we need to step back and let these kids deal with each other, be physical with each other, and just learn.
Phil, and all of us, at some point, we were introduced to the barbell, too. And that teaches you to exert, no pain, no gain, all that stuff that I grew up with. And then, later you heard, oh, that's terrible. You shouldn't say no pain, no gain. You don't need it. No, you're missing the point. Pain meaning discomfort, not injury.
Yes.
But that taught me a lot because until I was 13, my experience with sports was mostly like youth soccer. I mean, I liked it. I was fairly good at it, but it wasn't until I really started, looking at those muscle magazines and picking up the barbells and stuff that I learned the lesson that you were saying earlier. This is uncomfortable, and it's great.
Yes.
Right? Because you realize the reward. And it's not like you immediately get bigger and stronger, but, man, give it a few months. Yes. Now I'm physically more resilient and stronger than the other people in my martial arts gym or on the soccer field, or like you start to see it, and then you can get bitten by the bug because it's empowering.
Well, and like you said, like the barbell teaches that in a good way, because it teaches you that, like, literally advancement, the way forward, the way to get better is through discomfort.
Yep.
That's the only way to get better. And that's the same thing with the running. Like, I had kids, like, we begin our workout with the first thing we do is jog around the 2 football fields. And over 6 weeks, we had kids, I'd say most kids couldn't do it without walking. Now they've learned that if I just keep doing it, I get that discomfort, it sucks less, and I go further every session. And now we've got kids that are running all the way around it. How did they do that? By pushing through that discomfort. They had to get uncomfortable to get better. And that's everything in life. That's learning.
It is, yeah.
Like learning math. It fucking sucks. But they get it by trying it over and over again. You don't just quit because it's a little tough. So why can't the same thing happen in physicality?
That's right.
Like, they have to get uncomfortable to break through a new barrier. Today's uncomfortable will be comfortable by doing that.
Yeah. Worthwhile things call for investment of yourself into that. Otherwise, even if you do well, you're not going to value it as much. You didn't pay any price.
Yep.
Hey, Jarrell, how old were you when you started lifting? Were you like late teens, or did you start earlier than that?
No, actually, it was later than that. Yeah, I mean, I guess we would say late teens, probably like after high school is when I started doing some really stupid stuff in high school, like 16, 17, 18. Mm-hmm. So I was doing, who I was really into back then was it John Davies, the Renegade?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Training style. Because I would, peruse bodybuilding.com, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's what, that's what I want to train like. And then, he disappeared like shortly after that, I think, when people started stealing his stuff or whatever. But it was like 16, 17, 18. But I was always active, and I played, basketball and football, baseball, and all that stuff. I just never connected the dots on lifting, and most of my, family wasn't into it necessarily or had an understanding of it.
Oh, yeah.
For the most part. So most of the time the advice was like, oh, go run a mile. Like, that was like the advice I got most of the time.
Right. No, my family was like that too. Like, my sister, she bought me a Flex magazine in 1983 as a joke. It was a joke, and had Samir Bannout on the cover, winning the Mr. Olympia, and I took it deadly seriously. Like, something just clicked. I'm like, I want that. I want that. But yeah, my family, they encouraged, I guess, like some youth sports and get out there and get active and that kind of stuff. But the barbell stuff, that was all me. And yeah, to your point, when I started, I was a fool. I was such a fool with the stuff I was doing. Plastic weights was filled with cement and benching off the floor of my bedroom, like no range of motion. But damn it, I was going to do it, because you could participate in it. I think that's what I always liked about the strength sports is you can watch them and you can do them. And you can even do them on your own without organizing schedules and teams and all that kind of stuff,
And let's be honest, now that you brought that up, I think that in and of itself is another barrier to physical activity now. The cost. Like, even joining the team I'm on. Now, we have fundraising we do to where they can, like, fundraise and get their uniforms and things. But when I was a kid, like, I played YMCA baseball and crap like that, and it cost my family, like, $16 for a season. Yeah. And now it's hundreds of dollars. Mm-hmm. Like, the entry level for a family to be able to afford it, and you're talking like low-income families, how the hell are they going to do it?
Equipment, yeah.
Yeah, and there aren't. Like, our outlet, my main outlet, like we talked about, was just a playground, and we'd put a game together every day. Mm-hmm. Whatever. That's not happening. So now their only entry level is school, which it's not happening at school hardly, and even school sports now cost a ton. Mm-hmm. So there's a monetary entry level that's not attainable by many too. So yeah, it's tough.
Well, it's like you guys are saying, it's not until they almost reach a very high level, even pro, before they start saying, how do you do things? How do you do things? Because they just never saw it before, or like you said, for money reasons, didn't have the ability to do it, whatever it is. And then, it's almost like you have to purposely go in the opposite direction. Like, they're not providing this at school. I'm going to go home, and even if it is, like Jarrell said, go run a mile. At least that teaches you when things mildly discomfort, you push through it. It's a very challenging environment, and we're just not setting people up, whether it's bio, psycho, or social, to do the kinds of things that maybe they want to do. I'm sure a lot of these kids, they come to you because they're interested, something interested them in football.
Yep. And it's like any other teaching thing. I mean, I'm not stupid. I know that, let's say we got 100 kids on the field between the teams. If one or two of them make it to D1 ball, we succeeded. But if all these kids at least get some idea that sports and being physical is a good thing in your life, we won.
Yeah.
So, and that's the main thing I'm trying to do with youth sports. It's just like, that's my number one goal. It's like, physical activity can be fun, and it's good for you. And it's good to just go out and compete in things and lose and win.
Right.
Both of those are good, and you learn from them.
It's it's like that old Teddy Roosevelt quote, "The man in the arena." The credit goes to the guy who's in there. Lose or win, he tried valiantly. That's the value system that you'd like to try to build, and it's got to be fun for you guys to work with young people and do that. Like, you're introducing them to this whole new world. Like, open the door, walk through this door, people, because there are rewards to be had.
And then it feels good for you as a coach, like 20 years from now, seeing kids that have made it. Like, man, I remember when you were 6 and you couldn't do anything, and now you're playing D1 at this. Like, that's all I needed. I don't need anything else. So it feels good. So.
Well, I know we kind of mixed our topics there today, but because of the biopsychosocial, that all-encompassing perspective. I was just talking about that with Lonnie Ducote not that long ago. Like, it's a all-encompassing way to kind of look at some of the 3 major categories as to why we're screwed and how to be unscrewed.
Yeah. All right, sweet. That was a good show, and we will catch y'all next week.
Right on.
Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the ironradio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.